All right, folks, we're gonna get this
Moving.
started. Gonna call this at 6 o'clock. I'm here, Thomas is here, Marty's here, Meg's here, Barb's here, Ricky's here, and Jim's here. Is there any public comment this evening? Okay, no public comment. Couple of things. I would first like to identify, the packet is very brief tonight. One of the things that I've been doing, or trying to do with Deborah, is to go back several years in certain cases to kind of see where we are, what needs to be done as far as kind of carryovers on a couple of things. Also with the change of meeting times and things like that. So we're gonna probably bump into a couple of these throughout the year, but just to kind of give you a sense of where it's going on. Heads up, I did receive a letter from Dr. Brimstein, who is the superintendent of schools for the Peru Central School District. They have, for the past 11 years, organized a budget advisory committee, and if you know of anyone that is interested in possibly participating in that process, I do have a letter. I will have Deborah make a photocopy for you to insert if she, I don't know if this one got into your packet or not. Yes.
No, I didn't get it.
So,
I missed it.
so just a heads up there. American Legion annually has been holding a winter fest, and there's been some conversations in years past about the fireworks permit. Did talk with Mike Rock and inquired if there was a way that we could evaluate that permit for the fireworks. From the standpoint, and I'll be quite honest, I felt as though I did not have all the information previously when some of the decisions were made, and I seconded the motion because there was not some clarity from my standpoint. So I've had an opportunity to reevaluate and have some conversations as a first person with Mike and some others. So, you know, that event goes to service funds that support veterans. And I'm not singling out the American Legion, I'm using this as an example. What I would like to do is to propose a process in which nonprofit organizations that wanted to do fireworks that still met the standard of the paperwork and the permitting, the board could waive that particular fee if it was for, you know, the cause of a nonprofit organization. Now, I know Rick has been intimately involved with this in years past, and he has provided some documentation. Rick, can you give us a little bit of the, I think as the kids say, the 411, the info? The lay of the land?
Well, as you can see on the second page that I give it to you, I have to go to, or somebody has to go now, it was brought to my attention by somebody else, that on this, it says, whoever's obtaining the license will be responsible for getting everybody to sign off. But the last 3 years, the provider of the fireworks would not do it. The gentleman that was doing the fireworks was very adamant he wasn't going to run all over town to get somebody's signature, so I ended up doing it. I have no problem doing it because it takes you about an hour and a half or 2 hours to run everybody down to get them to sign off. The hardest one was the fire chief from Morrisonville, because he's a gentleman that works at the prison, and when he gets done home, so onto it. So I had to chase that. But anyways, there's quite a bit of criteria that the state requires onto it. All of the licenses and all of the stuff for all of those people, and I have to call the federal government because he has a federal permit to buy gunpowder, which is part of this explosive stuff. So there's a lot of tracking of licenses and insurance and all of that stuff, and that's what we discussed the last time onto it. Do it. So.
Rick, how many permits are you pulling for fireworks in an annual basis?
On a given year, 3.
Can you identify the activities that tend to fall in that? Obviously, Winterfest is one, right?
Yeah, Winterfest, the carnival, but last year they pulled it because of the argument over the fee and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then the other one was Mike Parati, who did a thing with a truck and all of that stuff at the fairgrounds.
Okay. So that would be a for-profit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're covered within our insurance covers this presumably.
Pardon me?
Our insurance covers this presumably?
Well,
They have to-
they have to provide us an
Co-named.
insurance policy naming us harmless for $1 million.
And you- Okay, and that's never been a problem?
No.
Okay.
So what I would like to propose, and, wanted to have this conversation before bringing any type of a draft for consideration to you folks is, again, not singling out the American Legion, but they're the ones that, brought to attention, and that's why I used it as a placeholder in the agenda. Might you be willing to consider something that would allow a process for organizations, nonprofits to request for a waiver in that permitting process?
Okay. But in doing this, we're not addressing what Rick's talking about.
I think,
Part of where I am on this, okay, we're rewarding one obstinate individual who just simply has got, he's got a mindset that he should not have to abide by the law. And that's Joe Cox. Okay? It's no more complicated than that. That's exactly what he said when he came in here. And,
well,
and he actually has had an incident where he had fireworks under his control that, went off out at Airborne. And it's exactly the kind of reason why you want to have insurance in place, because people could have been very seriously injured. There were, it was a very dangerous situation, etc. And yet he continues to refuse to do this.
has he refused the insurance?
Now, he hasn't refused the insurance, but he gives me a hard time every time we've done it.
Okay,
Onto
so,
it. I call him and ask him, all of the papers that he sent forward were not correct. They needed to be notarized and all this other stuff. Well, he said, I'm not wasting my time coming up there and having somebody notarize my signature. So the last time, Jackie was good enough to go down and bring all the paperwork and have Dr. Joe sign off onto it, and she notarized the signature. And then I had to call his insurance company to get us on the
Does the
paperwork.
Legion pay Dr. Joe to do it?
I don't believe so, no. I think
He doesn't charge.
He doesn't charge.
No, he doesn't charge.
and part of, you're talking about rewarding him, Marty? Well, he's already being rewarded, because it says right in here that he should be the one to get all these signatures. So the fee has nothing to do with the rewarding. It's spanking the nonprofit organization who's looking to host the event in a way that I think, is not in our best interest. If anything, I think what we can do is to draft a very professional letter in response to whoever gets the waiver that says, as a reminder, you are responsible in working in conjunction with whoever you hire to facilitate the paperwork for your permitting. If that cannot be achieved, it's like Monopoly. Do not pass go, do not collect $200.
I can see wholeheartedly that they're doing it for a good reason, to
Sure.
benefit the people that were served in the service and their community and all of that. I have no problem with that onto it. It's just going through the process of getting stuff done onto it. Now we're right down to the wire, because next weekend is when their thing is gonna start.
I thought it was in a couple weeks.
No, February 3rd, 4th, and 5th of 2017, so we're down to the wire.
Well, I think it's generous of us to offer this, but it's up to ultimately the folks who want this done to get the paperwork in on time and complete.
Right.
And we're not gonna bend over backwards to help them do that part of it. But
Well, I have been because of the other extenuating circumstances from the thing. But I also, that's what I told Mike, if this goes as a nonprofit and it's a free thing, then I feel that he should be responsible for going around and collecting all of the signatures and bringing it back to me.
One of the things that we could do as part of that letter though, Rick, is if they want the waiver, okay?
Yeah.
They have to submit in full before the waiver will occur.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, there's multiple ways
Right.
to kind of get to the solution. This year, obviously with the timing, it may not be perfect, but I think that a process could certainly be put into place that could hold people accountable to get us the information that we still need while not necessarily, you know, be not a detriment, but, an inconvenience to these organizations. And again, I want to take this outside of the parameters of just the American Legion, because,
Any nonprofit.
right,
It's just I can wholeheartedly understand that. If somebody is doing a venue
Yeah.
that's beneficial to the community
Mhm.
or to the veterans and all of that stuff, we had another veterans on the, what is it, Town Line Road that has an organization over there that's a veteran services. Well, they wanted to hold on the 4th of July a big to-do, and that was one of the things that held back onto it. So, I mean, there's several other venues in the area that have come forward but never did it because of the cost.
How many people have complained about the fee?
Pardon me?
Other than the one person, how many others have complained?
Well, Dr. Joe is the main person that does all of the fireworks in the area, so, I mean, all of these other people were asking him, but,
Asking him to do it, but they're paying the fee, aren't they?
well, they didn't before.
but not all of them are nonprofits though.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, Ricky was saying there was a monster truck, rally type thing.
yeah, they came.
That's
up with
for
the-
profit. So to
two-
me, that's a little bit different of a situation
Yeah.
versus a nonprofit organization. And I think, it could be a case-by-case thing. I mean, could be approved for 1 year, and if the paperwork doesn't continue, continuously becomes a problem, the board can make a determination to say, hey,
Right.
we've tried to make an accommodation.
Yeah, because the spirit of the concept, I think, is very important, but it's the accountability, that's where you addressed my question, that was my question, is if a waiver is granted, there still has to be the provision, the requirement that it meets all the
Right.
standards.
Well, even though, but when this came about, back in the years onto it, it was always that whoever was getting the permit had to go around and get everybody to sign up onto it, where,
Rick, I guess another question too, that I would have is it a requirement that it has to be the fire chief?
Yep.
I mean, hold on
because
for a second.
he's the head, either that or one of the commissioners.
Okay, well, the reason that I ask is, this says fire chief, you know what I mean? So if it's also a commissioner, or what have you, I think that may be of assistance to very much directly list out, if there is an alternative method, and how early can something be filed?
Well, they can do it a month in advance.
Could they do it even earlier than that?
Well, I would have been so. It
So,
just doesn't-
but again, if we're not accepting, a fee for it in a sense, it could be very much communicated to, because they've been doing Winterfest annually now for a couple of years.
Mhm.
We could say, hey, we recognize it could be hard to get the fire chief and some different people, but, you gotta get this application in. When you submit this, have all your names, here's the form, start working on next year's already type of thing, so.
Okay.
Like, I love your spirit of generosity, and I'm happy to always support anything that's going to benefit our community, especially our veterans, but $250 doesn't seem like that much once a year.
From my standpoint, from a nonprofit organization to a for-profit organization is where I found the split. That's all. I mean, and I think if there's different ways that we can try to achieve it, that's where I present, just a difference of opinion. But if the council doesn't want to go that way, one person, one vote, as they say, so I won't.
If you're talking about getting the application, getting all that stuff done, and there's no fee, who's gonna be going forward to get the paperwork, who's gonna do it? They know that they have to pay the fee, and then they have to get the paperwork done.
Right.
At this point, I think you're gonna get many more people, just don't pay anything to come at the last minute.
But it's not gonna be that easy, they're gonna have to apply
They still have to provide certificates of insurance.
and submit a written request,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
But I see this as analogous to what we went through with the movie theaters. And it wasn't until we really, made it clear to them that they had to comply,
Mhm.
and if they didn't comply, we were prepared to shut them down.
Right.
And then they got serious and they got at it, and now it happens, and they have a system in place, and it goes forth.
It's been my understanding that we have provided some allowance because depending on when the holiday breaks are, et cetera, in the paperwork, that we've actually given them some extensions because of that.
We've given them a
The
little
movie
leeway
theaters?
back and forth, yeah, no,
But-
we have.
But yeah, so, and, you
That's a
know,
little
Just
different
had a
with
situation.
a license to show a movie.
Or one of the
But
theaters.
if you give them a leeway, if you give them leeway on the fireworks, and the fireworks go off, and you did not have your paperwork in, and you did not have evidence that they had the insurance, and you did not have the evidence that you had your named as an additional insured on that certificate, you've let the horse out of the barn. And
Oh, I agree.
that's a major problem.
But now, speaking of the theaters and stuff, the two that we have in the area, I sent the one out to Cumberland 12. 2 days later, they were there with the paperwork, check, insurance, and all of that stuff. And the one for Regal Cinema, it goes right to corporate headquarters, and they did the same thing. They FedExed it back to me in 3 days. So, that problem has been resolved by working on it, so.
I think, how many fireworks do you need? I mean, this just town Plattsburgh, there's plenty of other ones throughout the year and everything else. I mean, I don't see avoiding this because it's a nonprofit. It just seems like, we've got to set something up. If you want to do a graduated thing or something, propose that, that's fine, but you need to have something in place, and we have to say, okay, you have to do these things, you have to get this in order, and no, we should vote against, but I don't want to, obviously, I don't want to put the American Legion out of the business, but, and I know that people will be upset, but you gotta have this,
Well,
gotta have things that are ordered by the
This
state.
is an annual event that's professionally organized, they should have a budget, and it should be worked into the budget, I would think.
Well, on the other hand, comes back, that when they do the 2 or 3 times down in the city doesn't even make them file for a permit.
but I don't think we,
So, I mean, I know that, but that's one of the things that they're coming back and saying, why is the town, I said, well, here's the law. It's nothing federal and state law that builds into this.
I
This is
wouldn't want
what's
to be,
required.
I wouldn't want to be in the city's shoes if they had a,
And
If they had a
something happens.
serious problem.
Exactly. Well, there were 6 people that were seriously hurt and burned that ended up being in lawsuits over there at the racetrack.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just,
right.
and one thing I know, that the sheriff's department, state police, and the fire department, and the ambulance are for the past 3 years, they can't get through with their equipment. The roads are, both sides of the road, and we asked them, and that was part of the agreement 2 years ago, that they would put somebody out there to stop people from parking close to the venue when they go into, because there's plenty of parking. But when you can't even get an ambulance down the road, the ambulance service last year had to park in Jehovah's Witnesses parking lot because they couldn't get through with the ambulance. So in case something really happened, that would be another thing. I don't know, that would be Jimmy's aspect, but,
I think we've now talked about other municipalities and what they do,
right,
no bearing on us.
yep, exactly.
We've talked about crowd control, we don't have a police department.
Yep.
And, we have a sheriff's department, a state police department, we have emergency services. I'm trying to have a conversation on fireworks from the standpoint of, and if the mood of the council is not to support it, that's fine, but I don't want to write a policy and a process and bring something forward that's gonna fail. It's a waste of time and energy. So I guess what I'm asking for is a straw poll sentiment of and it is not about the American Legion itself. It is about nonprofit, but it's about nonprofit organizations. Do we want to
And it's not
provide?
about, and it's not about the application and have all the signatures and all that stuff.
Do
That's
we-
still gonna get done.
Right, do we want nonprofit organizations to be afforded the opportunity to petition the council for a waiver with the understanding that they will still have the responsibility to provide the paperwork to us, certificate of insurance, the signatures, that are appropriate to, the request. And where I lean on the sense of the nonprofit organizations is nonprofits, when they're doing their events, ask everybody under the sun for gift certificates and, will you make a donation for resources?
Right.
Is the $250 going to break the bank of us? What are we assessing the $250 fee for? So,
If we make decisions each time on, it's up to us what to say, okay, we're gonna do a waiver and you can go ahead and do this. Then you're gonna have some, maybe didn't get a waiver, some that do. I mean,
yeah, and the way that I personally would design something would be with the conditions of this would be pre-submitted with the letter of application so that it could be, agreed upon at that time. Really the conditions are, do you have the certificate of liability and do you have the signatures in advance? That really should be the condition. And that they're a nonprofit organization where it's a it's not a private entity.
Are they a 501c3?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Or,
that's more than fair.
American Legion may not be a 501c3.
Yeah,
I don't know.
supporting a cause,
We go slow there though, because that's a problem where you could have, an organization that's not a not-for-profit organization that is saying they're gonna do a fundraiser for a charitable cause. Now, are you
okay, I mean,
Do this without-
we can certainly draw the line, I'm putting it out there for the
Yeah.
level of that, yeah.
No, but I hear what you're saying, Marty.
So, general,
is the 250 gonna break the bank? No, it's not gonna break the bank. We're only talking one or two at the most. We're still charging the ones that are for profit. Is that what you're suggesting?
yeah, it'd be my suggestion that, and again, we revisit, in a year, we go back, if need be, so.
I'm comfortable as long as the compliance requirements are met. Those conditions have to be met.
you're gonna have more applications if you pass this. I'll guarantee you. Okay?
Okay, so what's the downfall to that?
Where were they before?
We're
I
scared
mean,
dogs.
are we saying that, that the fee was what was keeping them from doing this?
I would argue that if the fee, I don't think the fee probably was or wasn't, but there are organizations that have requested, and I think that we can hypothesize about anything until the nth degree. And I would probably imagine that, if the doctor is, donating the fireworks, that he's not gonna probably do it for 30 new organizations. He probably will only do it for X number. I don't know what the long-term impact is,
Ricky, what is the sanction if they just go ahead and do the fireworks without getting the permits, without getting insurance?
Well, there's provisions in the law. I mean, there's, federal standards and state standards onto it. They can be fined up to,
Who would find them?
it would be the state, because if
Okay.
they're,
There's a state fine
Yeah.
if they don't do these things we're requiring, okay.
yeah, it says aggravated unpermitted use of indoor or outdoor pyrotechnics in the second degree. So, I mean, there's,
Okay,
you know.
no, you can answer the question.
It's written into the
law.
into the state laws.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
So, given some of the sentiment, there seems to be some interest. I'll sit on this and think about it a little bit more. I may draft something and bring it to you for consideration next week. So, I don't think we need to harp on this long-term, but if people have different thoughts and opinions, let me know over the next several days too. So, again, is it the end-all and be-all on either way? No. But I think it is a responsibility that when someone in the community does inquire, that I bring that concern to the board. It was, and, you know, there was an opportunity to consider that request.
On this, since it's supposed to be next week, doesn't that all have to be filled out? We have to vote
Yeah,
on
it's,
that?
well, it's all filled out. The only thing that is in non-compliance is this sheet and their current insurance company from Dr. Joe. The policy that he gave to me states the American Legion
Right.
onto it. It doesn't hold harmless the town, so.
It has to hold harmless both.
yeah.
Yeah. So, doesn't have to be voted on here?
No, because the way that I would say it is that, you know, it may not happen this year, could be next year, could be, you know, we've given your consideration and we're gonna, you know, look at this for.
So if they get those and Ricky just says, okay, go ahead and,
No, it could be that, it could be that we could pass this, and we could say to the Legion, we're prepared to do this, but he has to do, you know, this paperwork has to be submitted and it's gotta be correct, and the town has to be,
On the insurance.
you know, has to be covered on that insurance policy. And if he says, no, I'm not gonna do that, he said,
No.
you're not gonna get a permit.
The paperwork needs to be done either way.
Period.
Yep, so, all right, thanks, folks. Right.
So let me ask you a question. In interest of time to do this, do you want me to go ahead and get all the signatures, or do you want me to call Mike Rock tomorrow and tell him to do it?
Let's you and I, we'll talk tomorrow,
Okay.
okay? Deputy lawyer, just a quick update for you folks. Meg and I met with CJ Madonna, again, just to begin to talk about the process of the transition. Matt Favreau certainly continues to have interest in that. We're working on the logistical items with Clinton County personnel to be able to create a slot, in a sense, for him to move into that position. It is to be known that payment for Matt will come out of CJ's salary. So we are not taking, you know, money out of the, you know, the general funds, as they say, to pay CJ and to pay Matt. A certain portion of CJ's salary will be used to pay for Matt's work, okay?
and he's still gonna keep mentoring him until.
Yeah, and we're gonna work out the finer details as far as, CJ may stay with us until December. I mean, he may stay with us until June. I mean, that is still in flux, but the idea was to identify, finding a way that we could get Matt identified as a kind of co-deputy lawyer for a period of time, be able to identify the money, taking it out of CJ's identified salary that would be appropriate for funding, because I didn't want to just, you know, stress the budget by, you know, requesting of you folks money that wasn't allocated for. So more details to come, but I imagine, I'm actually very hopeful that by our meeting next week, that we will have a resolution to appoint Matt as a deputy attorney.
Okay.
So, but personnel, Clinton County, Kim
Lowe.
thank you, has been out, I believe, on maternity leave, so we've been working with some different folks, et cetera. So just trying to get some clarity on that. And I appreciate Jim also being of assistance with getting me some details.
Matt's jumped right in. He was at the planning board.
He has, yeah. and
I
it-
couldn't attend, but Tom told me.
Yeah, and it was with the understanding, when I had a conversation with him, that he would begin to shadow, and to really capture some of the knowledge in person. So, and he knows that that was, kind of a pre-requirement, so. Water Advisory Committee, may have a resolution next week, with some folks. We made the adjustments with the folks, thanks to Marty making a recommendation of adding another industrial user. A couple of people are interested, and just trying to bounce back and forth with a number of people, and so we'll see where that goes. And then draft resolutions that we have are the draft minutes, and then that is the bulk of what I had. Is there anybody having anything for committee reports or other business?
Yeah, I'd just like to take a few minutes on committee reports, and
Yep.
I'll be brief, but with the role on the audit committee and the role serving with Tom on the Justice Court Committee I mentioned last time, taking a look at the cost of the security monthly that's down in our town court. And of course, I was there tonight to observe Judge Patno in what he's doing in his role. And so, obviously, the presence of a sheriff is important. But what I think Tom and I were trying to do is do some research, and then we set up a meeting with Sheriff Favreau, who could not be there, but he had some of his subordinates that were there. His undersheriff was there, and there was a major and a lieutenant. So it really was the open dialogue, and that was to extend dialogue that, Michael, you've already had with Sheriff Favreau. So Tom and I wanted to represent the town, just to extend that dialogue and the conversation, just looking for any best practices or models that might be out there for consideration. Now, in that conversation, we did find out that after 9/11, there was a municipal law with regards to the presence of law enforcement, in this particular case, the Sheriff's Patrol, in public buildings. And there is a model that's in place at the Sheriff's Department. But again, what we have to consider is there are bargaining agreements, obviously, that are in various agencies. So first of all, let me back up and say that the overtime that we're addressing, that's the amount that we're addressing each annual year. Tom and I got the numbers for at least 2014, 15, and 16, so that's what we're looking at. The majority of that, the distribution of that was mostly overtime, so that's what we were addressing, is the consistency of the overtime. In experience and being in the public sector, obviously there are collective bargaining agreements. So the question I asked was about the overtime distribution, and those are provisions in a collective negotiated agreement. So the overtime is scheduled based on the interests of the patrol officers and so forth. So really what I'm getting at is that sometimes we can't avoid the overtime, just based on the fact that it's going to be the senior sheriffs and other sheriffs, and then maybe you can get an off-shift person, and that could be the regular time.
Off-shift people are usually only 3-4 times a year at the most.
Exactly. We were just trying to figure out, during the course of an annual year, where could we see that happening, where we could have a reduced cost. The municipal law that I brought up is allowing the reinstatement of certain law officers, retired, for instance, to be in a role like that can be present in a public institution. The thing I asked again is, with the collective bargaining agreement, is there a ratio of staff? So, I don't know, I think he said 22 staff. There's 6 of these dedicated, they're called Special Patrol Officers, SPOs. So there's 6. Of course, Tom and I asked about, how that works. And they're all dedicated right now. All 6 are dedicated, whether it's a school resource officer, they call them SROs, or over at the airport. So again, trying to figure out how that can work out. The possibility of getting a special patrol officer is not necessarily, the probability wasn't high. So again, we wanted to have tiered conversations, and then still walking away saying, we may come back, we just want to do some more research and just see what we can do to.
The only way you could add to it is if you added a regular patrolman who's a union person, and therefore you would be paying the full salary plus the car. Obviously, the car doesn't, you need a car every year, but every 5 years anyway. The other possibility was that sometimes one school system goes in with another school system to have a half-time person at one school and a half-time person's half-time at the other school. And I suppose that can be done with municipalities, but, you know, that's a lot more to look into. But at this point, I don't see how we can save any money on that, and going in that direction.
So it's really just to bring the board members just kind of up to speed on where that is. I would say stay tuned, because I think we need to, you know, look at some other things, but again.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Any other committees or items for the good of the order? All right. As they say.
We have a new person who's in charge of safety.
Mel Defiant will be taking on the safety officer, for lack of better terms, responsibilities from what Art used to do. So more to come on, building and grounds and how we're addressing some stuff in that department.
We had a
So.
very good meeting this week, and additional meetings scheduled, and things are progressing very well there.
Good.
Expect that we'll have some, information for people soon to process some decisions and how to go forward.
Okay.
All right, it is 6:36 and we will adjourn. Thank you.